Every night somewhere in the world, a radio begins transmitting. No music, no news, no advertisements, just a voice, calm, mechanical, emotionless, reading numbers into the darkness. 5, 7, 3, 9, 2. Again and again and again. For decades, people listening to shortwave radio have stumbled across these broadcasts completely by accident. A strange voice hidden between frequencies, speaking to someone, somewhere, for reasons nobody can fully explain. These transmissions are known as number stations, and unlike most mysteries discussed online, they are absolutely real. Thousands of radio enthusiasts have recorded them. Governments have investigated them. Intelligence agencies have been linked to them. And perhaps most unsettling of all, many of them are still active today. Because somewhere right now, as you listen to this video, there may be a voice reading coded instructions to a person whose identity we will never know. And that possibility is terrifying. Not because it sounds supernatural, not because it is somehow different than what we know, but because it sounds possible. To understand why number stations became one of the strangest mysteries of the modern world, we need to go back to a time when the world was divided by fear. The Cold War. For nearly half a century, the United States and the Soviet Union existed in a constant state of tension. Nuclear weapons, espionage, double agents, military secrets. Entire intelligence networks operated in complete secrecy. And intelligence agencies faced a difficult problem. How do you communicate with a spy without exposing them? Letters could be intercepted. Phone calls could be traced. Meetings could be observed. But radio was something a whole lot different. A shortwave radio receiver is simple, cheap and portable, and completely anonymous. Anyone can listen, which made it a perfect tool for espionage. The solution intelligence agencies developed was brilliant and unsettling. Instead of sending messages privately, they would broadcast them publicly. A spy sitting in an apartment in Berlin, a hotel room in London, a safe house in Moscow, could simply turn on a radio and listen. Everyone could hear the transmission, but only one person could understand it. The secret was something called a one-time pad, a seemingly random sheet of numbers shared beforehand between the agency and the agent. When used correctly, one-time pads are considered mathematically unbreakable, even today, which meant a spy could receive instructions directly from headquarters, while every other listener heard only meaningless numbers. And that is where number stations were born. Over time, listeners began cataloging them, recording them, giving them nicknames. Some became legendary within the radio community. Perhaps the most famous was the Lincolnshire Poacher. The station always began the same way. An Old English folk song. The Lincolnshire Poacher. the melody would play through static, again and again, and then a female voice would begin reading numbers, slowly, calmly, and perfectly. Many listeners describe the transmission as strangely unsettling, not because the voice sounded threatening, but because it sounded completely detached from human emotion, as if the speaker wasn't talking to a person at all, only reading instructions into the void. For years, the station continued broadcasting. Then one day, it stopped, without explanation. No farewell, no announcement, nothing. The signal simply vanished. And that wasn't unusual. Number stations often appear without warning, operate for years, then disappear forever. As if someone flipped a switch. Another station became even more famous. A station radio enthusiast simply called the buzzer, known officially by the designation UVB65. Since the 1970s, listeners have reported hearing the same sound, a mechanical buzzing tone, repeating endlessly, day after day, year after year. Sometimes 24 hours a day, sometimes interrupted only briefly. Most of the time, the station appears completely inactive, just buzzing, relentlessly, but occasionally, voices break through the signal. Names, numbers, random words, code groups, and then complete silence before the buzzing resumes once again. Naturally, the internet became obsessed. What was it? A military frequency? A communication system? An emergency network? Some theorists proposed an especially disturbing possibility, that the station functions as a so-called dead-hand signal, a broadcast that remains active continuously. And if the signal ever stops unexpectedly, something catastrophic has happened. There is no evidence proving this theory. But the idea alone transformed the buzzer into an internet legend. Because suddenly the station wasn't just strange, it became ominous. A sound many people imagined humming quietly in the background of the world. Waiting, always waiting. And number stations only became stranger from there. Listeners began discovering stations that used children's voices. Others used nursery rhymes. Some played fragments of music boxes. Others used synthesized voices that sounded almost inhuman. One famous station known as the Swedish Rhapsody became notorious because it appeared to use the voice of a child. The effect was deeply unsettling. Imagine turning through radio frequencies late at night and hearing what sounds like a child calmly reading coded numbers into static. No explanation. No context. Just numbers disappearing into darkness. And perhaps the strangest part of it all, some governments have indirectly confirmed that number stations really were used for espionage. In 2010, the FBI arrested members of Russian spy ring operating inside the United States. According to court documents, some of those agents received coded instructions through radio transmissions. Suddenly, what many people dismissed as Cold War folklore became something very real, because it proved that even in 21st century, number stations still had a purpose. Spies still existed, and secret communications were still being sent. But honestly, on my end, I don't think espionage is what scares people most about number stations. It is the atmosphere, the loneliness, the realization that these messages were never intended for us. Every transmission has a recipient, someone, somewhere. A person sitting beside a radio, listening carefully, waiting for a sequence of numbers that could change everything. And we will probably never know who they are. Maybe that's why number stations continue haunting people decades later. Not because they're supernatural, not because they're aliens, not because they're conspiracy theories, but because they reveal something uncomfortable about the world. The world is filled with hidden conversations, invisible networks, messages passing quietly through the darkness, entire stories unfolding around us that we never see. And every now and then, if you tune into the right frequency, you can hear a tiny piece of that hidden world. A voice, a sequence of numbers, a message meant for someone else, drifting through the static, waiting to be received. Before the signal fades, I'd like to thank you for listening. Whether you've been here since the first file or you've only just discovered soft static files, I truly appreciate you spending your time here. Season 1 may be ending, but the signal isn't going silent. The lore files remain open, and Season 2 is already being prepared. Until next time, keep listening.